Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Abby Gilman, and this is my channel about everything having to do with books. I realize that it's been a really long time since I've uploaded anything, but one of my resolutions for 2022 is to upload videos on a more regular schedule. And so, for my first video of the new year, I'm going to be talking about all the best books and series that I read in 2021. These will be my top 10 books of the year, or series, and each of these books I rated 5 stars, and were just really, really great reads. So I'm going to be talking about those top 10. And just a little note before I start, for the series that I'm going to be mentioning, for some of them I will choose my favorite book from that series and just talk about that book, or for some of them I'll be talking about the series as a whole. So that will all depend on the series and the differences between the books. So I hope you enjoy this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. And here we are, the top 10 books I read in 2021. Book number 10 on my list is Heartless by Marissa Meyer, the backstory of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical about this book before starting it, because villain origin stories are kind of a hit or miss for me, but this book definitely blew me away. It was fascinating to see the subtle transition of the main character who you grow to love into the ruthless Queen of Hearts. It's a standalone and pretty fast-paced, so you can read it relatively quickly. So if you haven't picked up this book yet, I suggest that you give it a try. Book number 9 is Echo by Pam Munoz-Ryan. It shows 3 different stories at 3 different points in time, all connected by the same harmonica. For anyone who likes historical fiction novels, complex and unique characters, or stories with a lot of poignancy and depth, I would definitely recommend checking this book out. Book number 8 on my list was The Kill Order by James Dashner, one of the 2 prequels to the Maze Runner trilogy. Even though I loved the entire Maze Runner series, this book was easily my favorite, which is why I was surprised to see a lot of negative reviews for it. So it may not be for everyone, but I personally was really excited to see how all of the events of the original Maze Runner trilogy came to pass. This book is action-packed from beginning to end, and I loved all the main characters, although I would definitely recommend reading the original Maze Runner trilogy before you start this one. But if you have read the Maze Runner trilogy, then I would definitely recommend picking this book up. Coming in at number 7, we have The Emperor of Nihanja, the 10th book in the Ranger's Apprentice series by John Flanagan. I loved the entire Ranger's Apprentice series, and I'm not quite sure why this one in particular stood out to me. It might be because it was the first book I read over summer vacation, and that I stayed up until midnight finishing it, but for whatever reason, this book was just a really great, solid story, and probably my favorite in the Ranger's Apprentice series. Just like the last one, I would recommend that you read the first 9 books in the Ranger's Apprentice series before you read this one, but even though it's a pretty long series with a lot of spin-offs, and I will definitely be talking about the series in later videos, it's definitely a great read and it's definitely worth your time. Number 6 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, the classic gothic horror novel about a scientist who reanimates a dead body. I wasn't expecting to like this one nearly as much as I did, since I read it for school and horror isn't typically my favorite genre, but I ended up loving it. It's full of intrigue, mystery, and suspense, and isn't terribly scary even though that feeling of suspense is always there. So if you're like me, and don't really like the horror genre but are wanting to branch out a little bit, this would be a great read for you to start with. Number 5 is the annotated Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen with annotations by David M. Shepard. I already talked about this book a little bit in my video on what books I read in school last year, so I won't talk about it for too long. But if you're wanting to get into reading Jane Austen but are scared that you won't understand it, this book would be a great tool for understanding the world and customs of Jane Austen's time. Even though the annotations make it about twice as long as it normally is, it's definitely worth your while, and I'd encourage checking it out whether you're a new Jane Austen fan or a longtime lover of her books. The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis comes in at number 4 on this list. This is another book that I read for school last year, but I enjoyed it so much that I had to mention it in this video nonetheless. It's about a demon writing letters to his subordinate demon about how to tempt his assigned human, and offers a lot of great spiritual advice through C.S. Lewis's use of satire. So, if you were a fan of the Chronicles of Narnia when you were younger, you'd probably like this book, as it uses a lot of C.S. Lewis's wit and wisdom, but is written for older teenagers and adults. Number 3 on this list is The Case for a Creator by Lee Strobel. This is the only nonfiction book on this list and one that I read for my biology class, so I wasn't expecting to find it as intriguing and interesting as I did. It follows the investigations of Lee Strobel, who is a journalist, in trying to determine what the cause for the origin of the Earth is. The scientific evidence that Strobel puts out is easy to follow and well structured, so even for someone who isn't a scientist like myself, I found it easy to follow the evidence that he puts out. It was a very intriguing and eye-opening read, and if you're looking to read more nonfiction books, this would be a great place to start. Coming in at number 2 is the first full series I'm going to be talking about, The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. Because this book series is so popular, I was a bit skeptical, but it definitely lived up to the hype. It's a fascinating combination of traditional fairy tales such as Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood, and set in a futuristic dystopian world. I loved seeing the way that Marissa Meyer combined the plot elements of the traditional fairy tales with the unique world that she created. So if you're skeptical about reading this book simply because it's so popular, I would definitely recommend that you check it out anyways. For me at least, it definitely lived up to my expectations and became my second favorite series of this year. And finally, my favorite series that I've read all year, coming in at number 1 on my list, is the Keeper of the Lost City series by Shannon Messenger. This is a series that I've been seeing on shelves at the library and in bookstores for a really long time, but never picked up until recently, and I'm so glad that I did. It's a complex story with a lot of moving parts, and is a lot more detailed and complex than many young adult books that I've read, even though it is a middle grade series. It has already 8.5 books, and the 9th one is soon to come out in November, so it's a pretty big commitment, but if you're looking for a great long fantasy series to spend your time with, I would definitely recommend this one. It's an incredible read with a lot of amazing characters, amazing plot twists, and incredible settings, and even if you don't think you'll like middle grade books, this is definitely one for you. So there we have the top 10 books that I read in 2021. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a comment about if you've read any of these books and what your impressions of them were, or some of your favorite books that you read in 2021. I will be trying to upload the next video in a week, so I will see you then in the next video, and I hope you all have a great day and happy reading. And for now, our bookish quote of the day is, "She read books as one would breathe air, to fill up and live," by Annie Dillard. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.